Hi. So we are here again to explore how energy really affects our emotions. I'm going to be sharing this over a cup of tea. Hi, Jackie and Carol. I see you there, Kathleen. Maybe you've got your cups of tea too. Nothing as joyous as a hot cup of tea. Okay, Carol, I'm already seeing a big question of yours coming in here. All right, Carol, I'm going to get to that question. And if I don't come back to it, you remind me, okay? I'm going to talk a little bit about how the emotions really affect our energy systems first, and then I'll be looking at the questions. But if I scroll down and I forget that question, Carol, then you remind me, I'm going to come back up to it. Hi, Sylvie, Eliza, Martha. See so many of you. Hi. I'm really delighted that we're here again on Facebook. It's getting a regular thing, eh? I'm really enjoying it. I plan to do it every 2 weeks on a Tuesday. Maybe if life gets in the way, that won't quite happen, but that's my plan at this point. I love being able to share in this setting. All right, so let's have a think in between the hot slurps of tea. Because there was a question that came out of the very first Facebook Live we did on gratitude. And it was a question, does emotion affect our energy field? And I realize that that's my starting point. That's where I have to come to, rather than looking at exactly how a specific emotion affects our individual energy fields, that I needed to pull back just a little bit to help give you the picture that emotions affect our energy field before you even know you're experiencing the emotion. By the time you figured out that, wow, there's an emotion here, your energy field is already running that emotion, and this is really essential, it's running its responses to that emotion. So when I had that question after the first Facebook Live, I really realized, okay, I need to explore some of this with you. So our energy system, everybody's energy system, your energy system, is designed to be cohesive. So that means we can really think about how we categorize energy. We can say, oh, there are chakras, and there is electrical energy in the body, and there's the aura, and there's meridians, and so on and so on. And all of that is invaluable learning and teaching tools. The truth, of course, is that we are one energy system. And then all of the different energy systems that are human beings or trees or animals, whatever, they're all connected as well. So we can look at the massive picture, but that's a difficult place to learn information from. So it's easiest for us to think of the human energy system and really perceive the difference in energy anatomy. So just like I could talk about tissues and cells and the respiratory system or the vascular system, then of course in energy terms we can talk about these different component parts of your whole. So when an emotion is being processed through the body, the first question is, where's that emotion coming from? And I know that it's running on biochemistry and everything else like that, but there's something that's sparking the biochemistry to create the emotion. There's something that's sparking the body system to respond in that way to emotion, and that something is your energy field. So if I walk into a room, and in that room sitting on the sofa is someone I deeply love, then my energy field is going to respond to that person's presence. If I think of that person, even if they're not in front of me, my energy field is going to respond to the thought even as I'm thinking it. And that response changes everything in my energy field. So anytime you experience an emotion, by the time you realize you're experiencing it, your energy field has changed. Now, how it changes isn't actually dependent on the emotion. It's dependent on you. And it's dependent on your whole growing system, what you learned as a child, what you're continuing to learn as an adult. So how you respond to an emotion such as anger or joy or grief or is going to be really dependent on what program your system has taken in response to that emotion. And that's where we get to all of the fabulous subtleties of emotions. And I'll explore them in other Facebook Lives. But for the moment, if we understand that our energy systems react to the emotion, so they identify a situation, they respond to the situation, and that creates an emotion. They then react to the emotion. So, wow, these energy systems, incredibly, incredibly complex. Not too complex for a cup of tea. So, there are some givens with certain emotions. The ones that make us move into protection or in any way retreat, those are going to really influence the aura. The auric field, the biofield around you, is going to retreat as well. Or if it's not particularly skilled at expansion and contraction, instead of retreating, what will happen is that it will kind of freeze and get a little bit dispersed. And at that point, you're more vulnerable, you're less protected, which of course, let's say you're walking along and you see a situation that makes you feel fear. So at that point, if your aura moves into staticness, if it moves into the freeze of fight, flight, and freeze, if your aura moves into that freeze response, then it means at that point it's not doing its fullest to keep you protected, to keep you intact, to keep your energy systems cohesive. Remember, I said at the very start, all of our energy systems are designed to continually work in interplay. So the core feeds the cells, feeds the electromagnetic energy, which feeds the meridian energy, which plays into the chakras, the aura, and so on. So everything knows its way of connecting until it doesn't. And that's where we hit places of illness or real emotional stuckness in places. All right, have I said everything? Let me have a look at some, if there's other questions that are coming in, so I can make sure I'm... Ava, I see. Ava, you've got a question. I'm wondering if you see emotions affecting all our energy systems down to and even touching our spiritual layers. Also reasoning if energy medicine can help us be more resilient to our everyday negative thoughts and emotions. Absolutely. Do you believe in the line of Greg Braden that focuses on positive thoughts, which become our beliefs, can improve or balance our energy systems, ultimately allowing the body to heal anything? Perfect. Well, let's start there because actually that's a great question. And Carol, I've got yours, so I'm going to come back to it. Can our energy, can emotion touch down to the biggest layers, the inner core or the spiritual layer? Absolutely. And a lot of those If we think of radiance, you see that magnificent sunset, or you see your tiny grandchild, whatever it is that really sparks radiance in our system. At that point, absolutely, we're working with the deepest levels of our energetic core, which is where the sacred or the spiritual really runs deep in us. At the same time, when that energy gets activated, it's reaching out into the furthest reaches of our energy, our community, our world. So you've got a deep, deep flow there at that point. Can energy medicine help us be more resilient to our everyday negative thoughts and emotions? Absolutely. Remember, cohesion is key. So when you do things like Donna Eden's daily energy routine, or you have a sacred practice or an energy practice, maybe it's Qigong or meditation, then all the time what you're aiding is that amazing cohesiveness within your system. And that means even old time patterns, and we all have them, we all have patterns that we are running by that really are no longer serving us. So even those old time patterns can be expanded. And rather than your energy systems running these programs that really aren't relevant anymore, when you work with a cohesive energy practice, whatever it is, then that's going to help invite the space for a new system to come in, a new awareness, a new consciousness, a new way of thinking. And that's where the beautiful understanding of thinking positive can really, really be of benefit. At the same time, and this is really important, if your thinking positive is a lie, if it is not a truth, then it will be detrimental to your system. So if you're thinking positive about something that really you have no trust or truth in your system around the positive statement that you're saying, then you got very, very wise energy. It knows anytime you're telling a truth and anytime you're telling a lie. That's the very fundamental basis of muscle testing and energy testing. So all of you out there that work with kinesiology, energy testing, muscle testing, you have seen thousands of times that when you tell a lie, your body loses its cohesiveness. It loses its resiliency. So if your positive affirmation or your positive thought is immediately counterbalanced by one in your mind that says, well, that's not really true, or, well, I know I should be thinking that, but I don't really, then actually that positive thought is anything but. So my suggestion with that is that you work with a positive thought or an affirmation that can be true. Maybe you're struggling with health, and there's a line in your awareness that says, I'll never be well again. Yeah. So now you're thinking positive, and you're thinking, I am going to be totally well in every way. And this is your new positive affirmation or thought. If your system doesn't believe that, if at some time, every time you say that, there's a place in your system that collapses energetically, then bring in a statement that is a bridger, like, I'm really curious about what it would be like to be wonderfully healthy every day. Curiosity always creates space in your energy system. And space means flow, and flow means balance. So curiosity is a brilliant thing to bring in if you're working to shift something that's negative into something that's positive. Sometimes there needs to be a bridge between these two. And curiosity, I'm curious about, that is a brilliant way to bring that space in. All right, Carol, I'm coming back to your question up here. So you volunteer in a hospice and you see emotions that involve anger, sadness, compassion. When so much is going on, how does this affect the different energy systems? Which system is most impacted, and what does this do to the heart? All right. So one of the, I guess I'm taking us back to one of the things I said a few minutes ago, that it's going to impact your energy system differently potentially than anybody else. So I can't give you a simple answer to that. What I will say is that in extreme situations, yeah, so the death of a loved one, you mentioned biggies, anger, sadness, compassion, grief, suffering. So when that's involved, then absolutely the heart field will be involved. The heart field is the power, the strength, the energetic health that emanates from the organ of the heart. And that organ of the heart sits within a very powerful chakra. It accesses down into the real depth of ourselves. And so anytime we're working with deep issues, and death is generally a pretty deep issue, when we're working with loved ones passing or suffering, then actually in that place it can really hit the heart field. So the vitality, the coherence, the abundance of energy in that heart field can really deplete. Now, when that happens, now it gets very individual. So a depleted heart field for one person might mean depression. A depleted heart field for another person might be fury and anger, because now they're generating the strength to get through their day, because the natural strength of the heart field that connects into everything, that really holds the rhythm of the whole energy system, that's no longer there. So they have to find a different source. Yeah, so I think, Carol, that's the best way to really answer your question. And I want to bring a little exercise here as well, because for all emotions, it will play out through this heart field. And there are many, many ways to bring balance to emotions. And we will be working with lots of different emotions over the Facebook Lives to come, and I can give you more specific exercises. But any time an emotion is moving strongly through the body, whether that's in a very yang way and it's kind of moving up and out like anger, or real, even exuberant joy. You know, we can feel joy and it can be expansive and balanced and beautiful. Or we can feel joy that's really brittle and ungrounded and kinds of sends us into places of imbalance. So understanding that what we're looking for with our emotional responses is to experience and feel, and then for that emotion to move through, to flow on, whether that's joy, peace, bliss, or whether that's what we might term negative emotions of anger or grief or sadness, fear. So looking for movement in our energetic field, looking for movement in our emotional field. This exercise is really beautiful for stabilizing, for bringing energy back in, and for nourishing. So helping it, let's say you're someone who tends to go internal and you move into self-doubt or fear, or you feel very low, then what your system needs is a nourishing exercise. If you're someone who moves into anger, overactivity, insomnia, then your system needs something that will help come back in. And it's very simple. You can place one hand just on the top of your chest, so you're just into your neck area, very stabilizing. This is a central area of the body. All of the chakras come through here. And when we tuck into this spot, it really brings a protective energy into balance around the heart field. And then the other hand, you're simply going to place somewhere on your abdomen. For some of you, it might be high up. Let me move this. So some of you, it might be high up, so you might really be on your solar plexus. For others of you, it's going to be much more down into the real lower abdominal area. Let's just take a couple of breaths here. You breathe, I drink tea. Of course, breath itself is beautiful for allowing space and movement in the body. So even as you breathe in and just invite the back to expand and relax. The space between your shoulder blades, the space around your kidneys, the space around your sacrum at the bottom of the back. Lovely. So that's a really beautiful way to nourish your energy fields when strong emotions are moving through and stabilize it. The other one is the heart hug. So simply coming, placing your fingertips in your armpits and placing your thumbs on your chest. And again, drop into this space. Use your breath to invite space into your energy field, into your body. You can imagine every cell just having a little bit of space between it, and you're breathing into that space. This again is very beautiful for nourishing the heart field, stabilizing it if it's all a bit wobbly, and giving it some support. All right, you can stay there if you wish. I'm going to have a look at any more questions that have come in. Naomi, when we are experiencing a difficult emotional response to a person which is an ongoing issue, how can we begin to break this cycle? Yeah. So I'm going to pick up with the exercises that we've just said. So it may be not when that person's around. This is something you're going to do outside of that time. But you might hold one hand on the throat, one hand on the lower abdominal area, and really think about that person. Even talk out loud about that person, bringing to mind the ways in which your system gets stressed by them, and also concentrating on their strengths. When we can move our energy fields into encompassing compassion for another person, then wow, the space it comes in then is amazing. And that's not to say that that person still can't elicit an emotional response from us, but it's immediately going to be balanced up with a deeper wisdom in the system that remembers that this person is a beautiful human being, that this person is actually doing their best. If they had a choice to be slightly kinder or nicer in this situation, they would take it. So it helps you stay stable rather than you being triggered by it. And of course, there's also neurovasculars. So these are 2 points just above the eyes in the center of the forehead, and you can place one hand on the forehead and you can place the other hand anywhere you want. You might put it on your heart, you might put it on the top of your head, you might put it on the back of your head. But that's another beautiful way to just help your system come into a greater place of balance. But again, it's about recognizing how and maybe even why you are being triggered by that person, and then thinking of their positives, bringing in compassion for that person. Okay. Wani, how can we distinguish between a lie and what we think isn't, but actually is a lie, especially when one is not so energy sensitive? You know, Wani, I might leave that question. That's not really emotion. That comes into more groundedness. That's actually a great question. So maybe we'll do a Facebook Live entirely on that. I see my sister. Hi, Sue. Wonderful. All right. So let's see if there's any other questions. You keep bringing them in. We've still got a few more minutes here. So let's come back to some of the things that I put in the information about this Facebook. Talked about the aura and feel. I mentioned about chakras and anger as well, because it's fascinating to see what chakras do when people feel anger. I can't think of the name for it. if I was to go back to an 80s disco, and maybe it still happens now, but I don't know, and look at the big machine that music would be playing through, maybe it's called an equalizer, I'm not sure, but there would be graphs on it of how the music was moving. You know what I'm talking about? So if a bass comes in, maybe there's a big movement in the graph here, and then a big treble comes in, and so we've got all of these different sound volumes essentially at that point. That's what chakras look like when we experience big emotion. So if something like anger really comes in the system, then the different layers of these energy centers that we have in our body begin to move and vibrate up and down and in and out in these amazing synchronized movements, especially if the anger is righteous anger. Whether it's accurate or not, when that's not what we're talking about. But if someone is experiencing what they believe to be righteous anger, wow, the chakra system gets this amazing synchronized movement in it. And one thing to say about chakras is they hold a vast amount of our truth. Any experience we've ever had is going to be held as an experience and a learning and a truth gathering. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that it's the truth. It's simply how we interpreted it. It becomes our understanding of a situation becomes our truth. That's a really, really important thing to understand about chakras. We can think of them as these amazing repositories of the truth of all of our experiences, and yet they're loaded. They're loaded with our personal bias. So truth begets truth in that experience. If I know that driving cars is a dangerous thing because I've had a car crash, well, that's a truth for me. Therefore, when I get in the car, I'm nervous and maybe I don't drive very well and I have a car crash, which then reinforces the truth that this is a very dangerous thing to do. If, on the other hand, whether I've ever had a car crash or not, I get in a car and I feel safe, I'm holding that truth in my understanding. Maybe I have had a car crash and I'm able to think, okay, that was then, this is now, different circumstances, I feel safe. Then that truth is what's held in my energy system. So you see how chakras hold truths for us. They hold our interpretation of truth. So when we move with anger, then our chakras become very, very resonant, and they take in the understanding deep into the chakra system. It's not necessarily an accurate understanding, but it is one that will now inform our energy field. Okay, let's see if we got any more questions coming in. Excellent. I also see Lucy there. Thanks, Bajoti. You were saying it's called an equalizer. I wasn't sure. I see Joe and Anne. Fabulous. Debbie. Cool. All right. And the other thing I wrote about was about joy. Joy is one of the ways that in our auric field, so in all of the space around us, when we experience joy, then we light up. The colors in somebody's energy field when they're experiencing joy is very, very different than when they're not. I'm sure we have all experienced the times in our lives when we've really been pretty flat. Even the most joyous person out there, you've probably experienced it. It might have been for a few hours, it might have been for several months, when you just feel that you're sort of flat, that your emotional mobility has really lessened for you. And if I'm looking at somebody's energy system and that's a situation, I can see from the absence of a lot of colors in their energy field that joy hasn't really been around within their system. Joy is a fascinating energy, because the energy of joy gets stronger when we can identify that we're experiencing joy. So let me say that again. If I'm going through my day and I'm pretty happy, everything's fine, ticking along, that's great. there's going to be good vibrancy in my energy field. But if I go through my day and I say, you know what? I'm really happy today. I'm ticking along. I'm really content with this place that I'm in. I'm really content with this level of happiness. Then the colors in our energy field spark up immensely. It's like to recognize our own joy, to recognize our own peace, our own happiness, reinforces the positivity in our system. It can be so normal in our daily lives to focus on the negatives or to focus on what we have to do, to be on that kind of hamster wheel of activity, busyness. And when we take a moment, maybe that's what I'm going to leave you with. It'd be really awesome. How about you commit to having a practice for the next week and just see how it changes your energy fields. And that practice is when you're getting ready to go to bed or when you're lying in bed, you think about the places in your day where you experienced joy. Where you and let's just define joy. Joy doesn't mean, oh my goodness, it's amazing, totally vibrant in every way. Joy means that deep, gentle experiencing that, yeah, everything is good right now. So think about, just tune into at the end of your day or any point in your day actually, where it is that you really noticed your joy, because that brings in an entirely new pattern of deep contentment and vitality in your whole being. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. Thanks so much for joining me today. And hopefully I'll see you in 2 weeks' time with another Facebook Live. All right. Bye-bye.